Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesdaylive and I'm Cyril Stober. Now, the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission approves the payment of 300% of basic salary as severance allowance for a political office holder on leaving office. True, the Code of Conduct Bureau Act doesn't prohibit former governors from drawing dual remuneration simultaneously, but think about the financial implications in some of the states. Many can't pay salaries, and even President Buhari voices concern that after collecting some 662 billion naira bailout funds from the federal government last year, many still can't fulfill their financial obligations to their workforce. Now, there are 21 former governors and deputy governors in the Senate and the Buhari cabinet. The various states' assemblies across the Federation have approved different huge pension benefits for their past governors who were in office for just about 4 or 8 years, as the case may be. These pensions range from 100% to 300% of the annual income to an incumbent governor. Others are to enjoy pension for life, luxury cars, replaceable after 3 or 4 years, security detachments, apartments in Abuja and their home states, as well as other sundry benefits. Now, while this is the case for governors, ministers at the federal level are also entitled to 6 million naira severance gratuity, and that's in addition to the packages, other packages accruable to them. Members of the National Assembly also enjoy the same benefits as approved for them by the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, including their severance gratuity. Now, in the face of all of this, some state governors have voiced out that these laws are not implementable because the former chief executives left them with so much debt. Now, although many of the beneficiaries do not see anything wrong in collecting double benefits, saying it's legal, there appears to be a moral question, as civil servants who worked for 35 years only collect a pittance and end up with little or no acceptable place to lay their heads. Now, what hope for the ordinary workers in either public or private employment? Is there any possibility of an upward review of such benefits to cushion the effects of these hard times? Now, these are some of the issues we'll be addressing tonight. We have a distinguished panel. But first, let's get to see this report by Timothy Yusuf.
The formal sector in Nigeria started when retirement and pension schemes have already come into being. Civil servants who worked for a stipulated period or have attained certain age automatically retire and are entitled to pension until they die. That has been the established norm world over, and Nigeria simply keyed in. Managing pension fund has, however, faced a lot of challenges ranging from abuse to embezzlement. The sufferings of pensioners over the years have made serving workers to cringe whenever the word retirement is mentioned.
Many of us have never collected their gratuity. They are not paying them. Many have died. Even their next of kin cannot collect their money. And our pension is too small. All the new increments, they increase. They are not paying.
I retired on grade level 14 and I was receiving 2,000.
This, some analysts say, is partly responsible for the rate of corruption in the system, as some civil servants try to accumulate as much as possible to take care of their needs after retirement. Those who know say retirement is reversal, while pension is penury.
As senior citizens, I am 78 and 6 months. As senior citizens who have spent all of our life working, I started teaching January 1956. We see people being awarded this, awarded that, awarded this. We have been ignored because we didn't jump into politics. There are very many like us who have served this nation very assiduously, committedly, and nothing else.
While still grappling with the pension administration in the civil service, another set of pensioners are emerging in the country. They are the public office holders who are basically politicians who do not retire but only serve in particular office for a maximum of 8 years. Of course, they can aspire into another office and equally serve for another maximum 8 years. The question here is, are they entitled to pensions? Well, some political office holders are already enjoying jumbo pension and other benefits courtesy of their state legislators who enacted laws to guarantee such. Alhaji Sule Yaji, a former deputy governor of the old Benue state, left office 34 years ago. As it has been then, Yaji is not enjoying any form of pension or special remuneration for services rendered. Just like many other former governors, Senate presidents, speakers of House of Representatives, and those at States Assembly.
Because we rounded up our tenure through a coup, it took me 2.5 years before I got my December 1983 salary. And it was 4,600 naira or something like that. That was all. But the services I offered, nobody thought about any pension, how is he going to live after leaving office. And if you remember, the Pension Act of 2004 did say that any public officer after service is entitled to some form of pension, but it will be contributory. Now, this arrangement was not there. Of course, what they are doing now, for instance, an arm of it which is very illegal, is that if it is a contributory pension, it is required that the employee had contributed some percentage of his earnings into that account.
Many are of the view that paying huge sum of money to former public office holders as pension is uncalled for, arguing that such offices should simply be considered as a call to service.
Political offices should be like part-time jobs, as it is done in some other parts of the world. You know, you come in there with a regime, you achieve whatever it is your goal is, or maybe you don't achieve it, but after the regime comes, if you don't get reappointed or get re-elected, you just leave. Even if you are re-elected, at the end of the day, it's always better for you to take it as a service to the people, right? Not the other way around.
We also have to regulate the issue of double dipping, where former public officials who become political office holders and who later grow politically are collecting pensions, all drawn from the same collective purse, should not be encouraged, because we have situations where by former civil servants become governors or become senators, and then they are earning pensions as retired civil servants. Then they go ahead and then earn pensions as former maybe governors or senate presidents, and still earn, some of them still earning staff salaries in their current position. Some ministers are there. I mean, cases are bound.
The controversy is not likely to end soon, but many believe it is an issue that needs to be discussed thoroughly, and that any position to be taken should be in line with what is obtainable in other democracies across the globe. In Abuja, Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
That report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guest. I'd like to welcome to this program Senator Ita Enang, who is Presidential Advisor, National Assembly Liaison. Senator, thanks for being here. Right. Let's also welcome Honorable Samson Osagi, a former member of the House of Representatives. In fact, he was a minority whip in the House of Representatives. Thanks for being here. All right. Let me also welcome Mr. Isaac Anumudu, a lawyer and policy analyst. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Cyril, and thanks, Nigeria.
And we're also joined tonight by Comrade Ezenwa Wagu, Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms, co-convener Say No campaign platform for citizens against corruption and impunity. And as just mentioned, he was also a delegate to the 2014 National Conference. Ezenwa, thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Right. Let's just mention that in putting this program together, we had asked the Nigeria Governors Forum and the Conference of Speakers of Legislatures to send in representation to this program, considering the issues that are in focus. Well, unfortunately, both the Conference of Speakers of Legislatures and the Nigeria Governors Forum are unable to attend. not here. We'd asked them to. We'd extended invitations to them. But back to the program, as we always do every Tuesday, we acquaint you with the procedure. At the appropriate time, you can get to join in the discussion in the studio. The various platforms will be on air. And for those who are phoning in, we always remind you, when your call gets through, do us a favor, turn down the volume. Just reduce the volume of your TV set so it's not loud. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And the best way to know your call has been passed through is you would see your name appear on screen. And once your name is on screen at the appropriate time, it means that your call has been passed through. And we encourage you to go straight to the point, ask your question or make a comment. And don't waste too much time on greetings. Just go straight to the point and try and keep it brief so others can get on the platform. And whatever issues you raise, assuredly our guests here will be willing to address them. So once again, welcome to NTA Tuesday Live. Let's begin looking at these issues. And there are some people would prefer to describe it as mouth-watering benefits to past public office holders, political public office holders. And so is it any wonder that many Nigerians would think that is the ultimate? You know, you are assured of a very comfortable retirement, in quotes, as against putting in 35 years into the public service and not having much. What's responsible for this trend, Senator Itaina?
Yeah, I think I want to say that the question of pension or severance benefit is applicable sometimes at the state level, sometimes at the federal level. And pension is paid by the relevant tier of government where you served. If you served in the local government, you may not be able to get the pension from the states. If you serve at the state government, you will not get pension from the federal government. Therefore, for severance, but for public office holders, they do not have pension except as prescribed by the Houses of Assembly. For instance, the Houses of Assembly in Nigeria determine the pension that governors and deputy governors are entitled to after leaving office, because there were public servants, there were executive officers in those states. For commissioners, I think it is as provided by the law made by those Houses of Assembly, because at the federal level, it is the House of Assembly, it is the National Assembly that makes provision for the severance benefits of president, vice president, the judges and justices and ministers. For the National Assembly members, senators and members of the House of Representatives, they are provided for by the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Therefore, call it mouth-watering, call it what you may, it is what that House of Assembly provides, or the National Assembly. For the National Assembly, where we were involved, privileged to be involved for a very long time, pretty long time, we provided in 2004 under the, earlier, I think 2002, 2003, under the Public and Political Office Holders Salaries and Allowances Act. You will see what a minister will earn. You see that a minister earns, I think no minister earns up to 1 million naira a month, none, to my knowledge, under that law. And no person is paid higher by the federal government and higher than that. No minister is entitled to a car. No minister is entitled to accommodation. You are entitled to salary specified there. Your car allowance and rent allowance is computed into what you are paid monthly. And if it is for a period, it is prorated. And at the end of your service, you are given what is called a severance allowance. No public officer earns except the Chief Justice of the Federation, And I think the president and after that the vice president as provided by that law. So even as this program is going on, Nigerians can Google that Public and Political Office Holder Salaries and Emoluments Act. You will see. And there were arguments for the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, Deputy President of the Senate, and President of the Senate that they ought to have been provided for, but that was not done. I think 3 or 4 attempts has been made. 3 attempts has been made, but that law has not been passed. Otherwise, I think no person at the federal level. For the governors, finally, it is what their houses of assembly feel that they can get and they can afford to pay them. And I don't blame the houses of assembly because of the enormous influence that governors have on the legislature at that level. And unfortunately, when a new government succeeds it, the incoming governor will also feel that my time will also come.
All right, thank you. Good. You brought out so many issues there and enlightened us on the various tiers. But let's come to Honorable Samson Osagi. Yes, your opening comments. You heard our background report and our comments on introducing this issue.
Yeah, I think against the background of the position put forward by distinguished Senator Itayenak, he has told us in practice how those benefits were provided for from local government to federal government. I think what we must understand is that the very foundation for these legislations giving pension benefits and severance allowances to past political office holders is the Constitution itself. And we are just practicing this Constitution, experimenting it about 16, 17 years after it was shut down our throat by the military. And so the complaints that are arising therefrom are because we have now practiced it and there seems to be some form of abuse from one quarter to the other. Otherwise, the legislature are not at fault at all. Starting from the state assemblies, they make the pension rights of governors law pursuant to the provision of the Constitution, particularly Section 173, which gives pension rights and benefits to those who have held office as governors and deputy governors. The same thing for president and the vice president. So the issue is, it is a constitutional matter. And for other categories of public officers, like the National Assembly members, the legislators themselves, both at local and state levels, the Constitution empowers the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission to provide for what they will earn in terms of both salary and emoluments, and of course, severance gratuity after the tenure had ended. And that is why for members of the legislature, by the time your tenure is terminated, after 4 years, or 3 years as the case may be in case of most local governments, you are paid a percentage of your entitlements for the period that you have served. And that put paid to the entire exercise. So it is much the same way that civil servants who have risen to the position of directors, assistant director, deputy director in the ministry, are also entitled to some form of pension and gratuity. But maybe as the discussion goes on, we'll begin to understand why are there differentials in terms of what elected public officers take home as pension and severance and what civil servants take home because of the number of years they are put in. Of course, the job schedules are different, and we'll begin to discuss those ones in due course.
Thank you so much. Well, yes. Well, you're a lawyer, and one of the arguments we hear all the time is that, nothing illegal has been done here. The state assemblies have passed the law, so it's a law, and They have not done anything illegally. Yes, that might well be so. But again, we others will ask, take a second look and see if everything that is legal is right.
Yes, Cyril, you've made a very important point. And if you look at the intro from your reportage before we started this conversation, the concern of most Nigerians and of all of us here, if you look at the tone of the distinguished Senator Enang and the honorable member who had just spoken, is not on the legality simplicity. Nigerians are not quarreling about the legality or otherwise. And in all fairness to the House of Assemblies that are making the laws and the Revenue Mobilization and Allocation and Fiscal Commission that is already provided for in the Constitution, they all have the powers to make these laws. The question, which I'm sure is bothering the minds of most Nigerians and which I think this discussion would deal with emphatically, is considering the present economic realities, considering the fundamental and humongous disparity between what the civil servants who have served for 35 years take home as pension and gratuity, and the irregularity with which that comes. How do we begin to drive the discussion positively as to what should happen to those humongous provisions made for ex-political office holders? Because like you rightly said, they serve for only 8 years. I myself have some vast political background, so I know how challenging it is to get into these political offices. Let's not take that away from the politicians. But if the whole essence of politics is service, and you've gone to serve your people, that service should also extend to the level your people have to pay for that service. Otherwise, it ceases to be service. I want to say categorically that in the course of this discussion, we will need to examine, is it okay for a governor of a state where there is difficulty in paying salaries to have the state assembly pass a law that will entitle him to so many hundreds of millions as severance, and then a house in Abuja or in Lagos and in his state capital worth 500 million, as is the case now in some states? The truth is that that cannot be sustained under the present economic reality. And Nigerians would really want these laws urgently revisited.
Well, I think it's fair to constantly hide under legalese, you know, what's legal, what is not legal. But the big question is that, what are we rewarding you for? At the end of the day, what is this thing that we're paying for? Whether this humongous amount of money is supposed to be for service that you rendered, okay? Many of the states have been run aground to the extent that they are receiving support. They need support to survive. There are arguments, there are conversations about even merging some states. And the man who is responsible for this leaves office, and then out of the damage, if you permit that, you now take this humongous amount of money to say thank you for what? That's what I don't understand. So we can do all the fine arguments about whether it's permissible in law and all of that, but the challenge we face is that the condition of our country is no longer, can't resonate with those kind of take-homes. So if we continue this argument of, you know, what kind of even legislature do we have in the states? And I think Senator Itainan alluded to that. In many places, it is no longer secret that what you have in most states is a rubber stamp legislature. In many situations, you hardly have had any parliament in the states disagree with the chief executive of the state on any matter. If you remember, if you recall, even the independence of local governments, the states rejected that they don't. I mean, they don't want it. It was when honorable that were in parliament. The states they forced those people to reject even independence
of the houses of assembly.
Of the houses of assembly. Yeah. So we must come to that point where we push this thing back. What are we really paying you? Just out of the 36 states, how many of them, as we speak now, is not owing pension of their own workers? In my state, it got to a point where they are told to take 40% and accept it as final settlement, and they were giving, and they signed it off, and everybody is gone. But when that governor leaves office, he's going to benefit from some of these things that are in quote legal. So the challenge for us is to have a conversation like Barrister Anubudu said, that tailors us into positive look at some of these issues in the light of the challenges that we are facing currently.
Yeah. Well, added to all of this, some of these governors, they leave office, they end up in the National Assembly as senators, or they end up in the cabinet as ministers. They're entitled to all kinds of things too, nice and legal. Some of them were even in the public service at some point in time. They have that one coming along. Some were in the military. They have that coming along. And many Nigerians are sitting back and watching and saying, hey, it just pays to go into this. Would that not be responsible for what he talked about, that he knows what it is to get into that office?
Yeah.
So it's it's a do or die.
Yeah. Please let me just make a little comment, some comments on what my colleagues have said about what are you paying the governors or the former governors for, or some of them run the states aground or something, or is it realistic? Is it still realistic? I want to say that law is dynamic. Even the Constitution can be amended. And law is dynamic to the extent that you make available what you can pay depending on what you earn. You cannot keep paying what you do not have. Now, the states and the houses of assembly of those states, and the governors of those states today, and the former governors of those states today, should consider what was the oil price at the time that these emoluments were fixed. How much was the state government earning at that, taking monthly at that time? What were the income from the internally generated at that revenue of the state at that time when these emoluments were fixed? It was not fixed for all times. It was fixed for the time in accordance with what was available at that time. They should now come and look at it. You review the law, including salaries and emoluments, including earnings, according to what you earn. Now that it is certain that the oil is no more selling at the price it was at the time it was fixed, the state governments are no more earning what they used to earn at what they have. There are no more internally generated revenue. Most industries are not generating to pay as they were. Now it is time to review the pension packages of the governors and all political office and political office holders, at the state, and even if at all levels, if it becomes necessary, if you consider that it is unreasonable. Unreasonable considering what you earn. Now, coming to your question that some earn or end up in the National Assembly and some end up in other places. I want us to not to make the mistake of thinking that it is only politicians or ordinary civil servants or ordinary legal practitioners or businessmen that end up in the legislature or end up as governors. Because the attack on this matter seems to be most times at politicians. Now, take for instance, it is applicable in all services. At the judiciary, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, of the Federation, is entitled to a house built for him in Abuja upon retirement. Justices of the Supreme Court, justices of the Court of Appeal, justices of the Federal High Court, State High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, and all Superior Court of Record. There is what we call the pension rights of judges. So you look at that they are also entitled to pension, and they will be collecting it even if they have other appointments. Get to the military. The military are entitled to pension at all stages. Get to officers of the police. There is the police pension fund. Get to the state services, the state security service. They are entitled and they have it. You see, the politicians and public shouldn't be made to be that it is those who were in the civilian services and the unregulated services that bomb this. I come again to the question you've raised about governors who end up. Now, when you earn a salary to sustain yourself in the office and at the work that you are doing. When you come to become a senator or a member of the House of Representatives or a minister after being governor, for instance, you are performing another role.
All right.
I agree that public policy, and if that's to be public policy, it has to look at the matter globally, not looking only at the governors and the senators and so on, so that it doesn't appear as if we are targeting a particular class.
All right, thank you. We have our very first caller on the line, Sanusi, who's calling in from Maiduguri. Hello, Sanusi. Go ahead.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes, hello.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
My name is Suleiman Sanusi. I'm calling you from Maiduguri, Borno State. I would like to use this medium to follow some of our state governors, if not all, that they are mistaken that the right of a pensioner is that of a privilege. It is not a privilege at all. It is their right. Having worked or served our country for about 35 years. And the kind of interplay between the federal, state, and the local government in terms of prioritizing the retirees is quite disheartening. Let me use this word, but very loose. And in response to my brother, Senator Isainang, and the other one from the National Assembly, here we are talking about the topic of needy. Let me use this word, because pensioners today are needy. Talking about that a senator is not entitled for 1 million in a month and all that. These are not the issues. Here we are talking about a teacher, and all are vulnerable that have served our country for about 30 years, 35 years, and they are not entitled for their enrollment. And we are talking about governors, senators, presidents, and House of Representatives. I'm sorry, my brother, these are not your topics. We are talking about needy, as I said it earlier. Because pensioners today in Nigeria are needy. I'm saying it based on track record, because I have a mother who is a pensioner. We cannot afford to buy food at our home. And we are talking about senators, reps, and all that. Please let us change our minds and our perspective in terms of understanding the pensioners and retirees. May God save us from all. Good day.
Right. Thank you very much, Sanusi. Okay. Well, Honorable, you heard the band. That's these are the kinds of things you hear. Yes. Well, Senator Itayenang has made the point that it's not politicians being targeted. We must correct that. Nigerians are asking questions, and many of the states that have passed these laws are not fulfilling their obligations. And we're talking about people, even when you, the argument sometimes, is even if you talk about the judges, they spend a lifetime on the bench, and people walk into office and spend 4 years, and they're entitled to all this, and they go to another level, another service, as he says, and spend another 4 years, and they have another load of entitlements, and by the time, people are wondering, by the time they go from governor to senator to minister, what have we trailed along? And if you put all that together, it's probably just 12 years.
Well, I think, to be quite honest, it calls for concern. And that is the truth of the matter. And if we don't understand the philosophy, the question is, what was the philosophy behind those framers of our Constitution by making such constitutional provisions upon which the legislature derives its power to now begin to appropriate state resources for political office holders who have served for some period of time? Perhaps they were intended to ensure that the governors while in office should be able to be focused on the job he is elected to do, knowing fully well that at the end of his tenure, he is assured of a comfortable life, at least not below what he's been used to as governor. I think the question that agitates people's mind now is that whether there are clear evidences all over to justify that philosophy behind that policy. And I think the answer is clearly no, given the several cases of misgovernance and misconduct of a lot of people who have had the opportunity to run their states. Of course, that is not to say that there are those who have not also worked, but we are talking on a general note.
And declining revenues.
And the declining revenues of the country, because as at the time the question was thrown at us in 1999, 98, 99 by the military. You and I know that we did not expect the Nigeria of then to be the Nigeria of today. And so the economic and material conditions around the time that this constitution was put in place and handed over to the political class also determined those philosophies. I believe that Senator Ita has made the point that law is dynamic. The laws that are in place today are such that those who make them must bow to public feelings on this matter to revisit them. Incidentally, some of us have been involved since the beginning of this republic. And the conditions under which those laws were made are quite different today. And we must understand that. Because a vast majority of our public service are being owed pensions. And if you break it down and look at what each of them take home, it's ridiculous. Although, however, that the job schedules of a politician who enters a public office and the pressures that go with it are issues that also need to be examined, regulated, and of course, laws made that must be implemented to guide the processes of electing people into public office so that you don't make it such an expensive venture. Because these are some of the things. So I believe that the laws needs to be regulated, needs to be revisited, they need to be reviewed, as they cannot be started because they cannot be sustained.
Okay, back to the phone lines now. We have Tukur calling in from Jos. Hello, Tukur.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
I just want to say something concerning this issue of pension to this public office. To be sincerely speaking, to me, it's like we are not doing justice to the local government at all. The local government, the governors more especially, they are these people that they are in the House, National Assembly. They have gone there, they are receiving salary. Still, you are thinking of giving them pension. I think we are not doing justice to Nigerians. What about the local government? What are they doing concerning them? They are not doing anything. They are just like an appendage of the state. So to me, giving pension to this public officer, I don't think it is something that is worth doing. What we need to do is, some of them are even military governors, former military governors. They were receiving pension in that one. Even when they come as civilian, they will still receive pension. So to me, it's like we are just paying them for nothing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tukur. Well, yes, the arguments are coming from both angles. But is this a carryover from the process of our political process, the process of being elected into office? Is this a reflection of what it takes to get into office? That even if you say the philosophy behind it was to insulate incumbent from so many things in the hope that they know there's an assured future after they leave office. But clearly this is backfiring, because if you put in so much to get into office, like you yourself noticed, is this not a carryover of that, carryover effect of that?
Well, sir, it could well be, but the discussion we're having this evening is throwing up very serious national issues. And that's what Nigerians are making reference to, as reflected by the call from Sanusi from Maiduguri and Tukur from Jos. That sums up the view of most majority of Nigerians. They are very concerned about the incongruity in this pension being legislated for former political office holders. It's not as though there is no original...
That is pension for... It is only governors, former governors, who have pension. Other political office holders
have severance,
and just once and you go.
Fine.
Yes,
fine.
None, because that arose from the call from Tukur.
Yeah.
He had the impression that all the former political office holders take pension. No.
Yes. Now, but this thing is coming from, not just because of the philosophy behind it. That philosophy could well be altruistic, and in fact, important in the war against corruption that the present administration is pursuing. Because you can't be talking about war against corruption when people don't have assurance of being able to meet basic needs, either both when in office and when out of office. But while you're dealing with that, you have to deal with all the issues, all the incidental issues that have been thrown up now by this discussion, which is one, the issue of the independence of the state assemblies. Like Izenwa pointed out, something must be done. So this discussion should not just highlight the problem. We should contemporaneously be talking about the solutions. This absence of independence of the state houses of assembly need to be addressed immediately by the ongoing constitutional review in the National Assembly. It has to be handled, and whatever needs to be done to deal with the pervasive influence of the governors on the state assemblies that do not allow this to take place by constitutional review. It has to be dealt with by the will at the top. That's very important. Secondly, it has also raised the issue of the pension regime generally, because Nigerians wouldn't have been crying so much if we don't see the kind of humiliation our senior citizens are going through in the ongoing pension regime. You hear almost every day stories of pensioners dropping dead in the queue where they are waiting for this pittance they call pension. You're talking about, you're hearing stories about the pension committee having absconded with millions and billions of pension funds, said to be missing, all efforts to retrace or recover them amounting to some kind of futility. This gives Nigerians a sense of hopelessness. So you cannot be fighting corruption in that atmosphere where the civil servant is not sure his pension will come even after the 35 years of gruesome commitment to the nation. And he is retired, he doesn't get even that little amount on a regular basis that guarantees him to feed. He wants to resort to self-help, which is what is responsible partly for the pervasive corruption in the land, even though it does not justify it. It also raises the question of, what do we do now? Senator Enang, distinguished Senator Enang has rightly said, law is dynamic. Honorable has agreed. I also agree. If law is dynamic, then so what? It means that the assembly members should now begin to either amend these laws that have given humongous pay to these former governors to align with the reality of the present economic situation, or because even as at few months back, under the present recession, a particular state legislator just recently passed a similar law. So there must be a quick and immediate retracing of steps in this unsustainable direction.
We go back to the phones. We have Charles calling in from Abuja. Charles, hello. Hello, Charles.
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Let me start by saying the highest level of corruption. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
So the highest level of corruption is in politicians. And another thing is this. There is no way a public servant who retired from a civil servant is waiting for pension. He has a pension already there. And he's venturing into politics seeking for another pension. What kind of corruption is that one? That is the high level of corruption. You retired as a PAMSEC. I have it by the state, the governor is retired as a PAMSEC. And today he's a senator. He's receiving pension as a PAMSEC. And right now he's a senator. Imagine they gave him, they decided to approve the law that will give a pension. He will be receiving 2 pensions. We have a lot of senators who are generals. They retired, they are receiving pension there. Where are we heading to? We are against it. As far as I'm concerned, the youth in this country are against it. We will not accept it. It's satanic. It's demonic. We will not pray for it. And any member or senator who will approve that kind of law, I pray that his children will wake up and see that this kind of law is not good for them.
All right. Thank you, Charles. Well, listen, you know, there are aspects of the law, and the law is dynamic.
What I feel
is
is a collective indictment on the political class. I think to begin to want to say there is one, the political class as a category pointedly has failed Nigeria in the way they construct laws that has no vision. You don't make laws because of where you are at that particular point in time. You also understand that you are dealing with something that is, let me use these words, dynamic. Why did we create, what is the argument for creation of states? Those who argue for creation of more states say they are sustainable. That's their argument. They never conceived that they were going to be as beggarly as they have become. So my idea is that if you make so much for your state, let's say you are able to make resources for your state in such a sustainable manner, you can then do what you know, because it's federalism. It's not here. If you go to state of New Hampshire, for instance, their state house of assembly, for you to be a member, your annual emolument is $100. So before you become a member of state legislature, you already are aware that this is what you're coming to earn, irrespective of whatever. So it's a challenge. And there are other states that their legislatures earn much more because they are able to produce the resources that is able to sustain that. So we are not coming from that point where everybody is looking onto where these resources, and these resources is not is an infinite resources. It can disappear, okay, and it's disappearing, and we are feeling the pains now. And people are still holding on to arguments, like you just said. People are still making laws that guarantee you houses in Abuja. If you govern your state well, why do you want to live in Abuja? If you were so good governing, why do you want to have a house in Abuja? There's a problem with that kind of thinking. And we must get to that point where people understand that they have roles. There are roles. The role of a legislature, the leadership recruitment process, as problematic as it is, you know what you are coming to do. Why do you have to sell your house when you know that this is what you are going to earn? What is the problem? You already know that if you come to National Assembly, that this is what you earn according to
Yeah, it's there in the act. It's
the act is known. So if there were no other things, what is the reason why you have to go and kill yourself? Okay. Why do we have to not deal with the internal party issues that put you up in such a way that for you to even become a candidate, you have to cough so much money to the parties? Why are we not pressuring our political parties to reduce the what they call expression of interest, all those things? And in fact, the ruling political party now tells you that they did that in the presidential and in the governorship, that they put the humongous of money they put for expression of interest and their forms because they wanted to separate the men from the boys. That was the argument they put forward. And which self-respecting person will find that kind of money to even contest for office? So we confuse the situation. So he talks about solution to this issue. The thing to do is to first and foremost have a conversation within the political parties to say, look, what kind of people do we even want in leadership? What kind of people do we? Because otherwise, the civil servant, I think we need to also make this point. Because sometimes people make the mistake. You chose to be a civil servant. There is a role you play as a civil servant. There are benefits that come to you as a civil servant. As we speak now, if you work as a civil servant, you can go to a shop and buy something for credit. They will give you credit because at the end of the month, it is expected that you'll be able to pay. Those are all the things that come. And even now,
that still substains today. That was when
no. If there is a respect that comes for you from being
now they know that you might not get your pay for 7 months.
No. It depends on but what I'm trying to say is that we always don't play emphasis on rule. Okay. If you're a teacher, okay, understand that you didn't want to be Barrister Nimudu. You chose to be a teacher. And there are conditions of service that are well spelled out before you became a teacher.
Right.
If you don't want to be a teacher, go and be a lawyer and earn the resources of a lawyer. So because this confusion keeps playing, people don't accept their rules. They want why, as you are state legislature, your ambition is to unseat your governor. If you are in Senate, you want to go back to be governor. So that crisis comes, the governor says you are eyeing his seat. He wants to come back to Senate. All those confusion everywhere.
All right, we have Tony calling in from Benin. Hello, Tony.
Hello.
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 Yes, go ahead, Tony.
Mr. Cyril, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I'm contributing to your discussion, sir.
Go ahead.
And I'm condemning the idea that after politicians have served for less than maybe 10 years or 12 years or so, they should be paid pension. There is no justification at all in what they are clamoring for. This is the same political class and leaders who cannot pay the public servants or civil servants of today a minimum wage of 18,000 naira. And they are not ashamed to say the same group of persons who work for 35 years and they say because of contributory pension, they, at the end of the 35 years, they have little or nothing to take home. Some of us will be retiring in about a year or 2 years from now. And the totality of what my pension administrator, IBTC sends to me is below 4 million. And I'm already a level 13 officer. Which means maybe in the next 1 year, if they add too much, they make it 5 million. And they are projected that because of suffer or because of the hardship in the economy now, every male is expected to die within 15 years after retirement. That's the projection. That's what they come to teach us in the office every day because of stress. And you have pegged our life at 75. Whereas we have politicians who are retired of pension and they're 70 years and they are rulers and leaders of different positions in governance, and yet they want to take another pension in addition to their own. If we are living in civilized society where the average man has access to defend himself after what some people will say they are causing incitement, it's enough for one to resort to self-help in this country because of the monumental failure of our political leaders. They don't have the interest of the electorate that put them there at heart at all. Some of them stole when they were still servants, retired, they enter public office, they are still stealing and will never stop. And we, who they call civil servants or public servants, we find it difficult to eat now. People are beginning to ration their children's school instead of going to university in the state because you cannot put them in the federal university and you cannot pay school fees for your son in a state university. You ask that child to go to a college of education or polytechnic. We have resorted to doing that. And simply enough, when we hear that Olusegun Obasanjo, our former president, is the person that neglected and put into law this contributing pension. What are we talking about? Fighting corruption, whereas we are perpetrating the corruption on a daily basis. The poor man, the average man, the civil servant has no way to assist himself. Otherwise, all these things would be put in check. Because these are some of the things that caused the French Revolution.
All right. Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you. Well, we'll take a short break here. Stay with us. When we return, we'll begin to look at what can be done to address this situation. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our affected brothers and sisters are getting their lives back. However, they are now after you and me. In our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, plus including me and you.
Nigeria, make we unite against terrorism. Now, Federal Minister of Information and Culture bring on this message.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Right, thanks for staying with us. And as you by now know, even when we take a break on matters like this, The discussions still go on behind the scene because these are issues that, as they say, are burning issues. Senator Itai now.
Yeah.
Well, in the first part, we looked at the various aspects of it, and while some people would say, yes, the state assemblies were well within their powers to enact these laws. The other question people say is that, is there a moral question here? And some have gone on to suggest that, well, even if a law is passed, why would the beneficiaries, in the spirit of service, not say, well, let us review this downwards?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be a wider thing because there has been, from calls made, there has been a misunderstanding of the submissions here. I think one of the callers thought that, expressed the opinion that we are calling for pension for legislators and public officers. Please, there is no such thing, and it's not under consideration anywhere. And Tuko called on the program and expressed that his mother has not been paid pension and so on. We are, Tuko, we are with you. But I want to say that pension is payable by the person whom you worked for. If you work for the local government, either at the in the teaching service at the primary school level, you are either a staff pensionable at the local government, and it is that local government that will have to pay you. I know that local government now has been crippled by most state governors, because when the funds meant for local government goes to the state, if they don't put it in the joint account, the governors kidnap the money of local government. And so they ambush, okay, let me not use the word. They ambush the money, and then the money does not go to local government. So teachers in those local government, primary school retired teachers are not paid. And secondary school retired teachers are staff of the state government. Now, there is also, and some of them, they will also raise alarm that it is Abuja that had not sent money for their pension. I want to say that pension, the idea of pension was to be that what you have contributed has left imprint and investment in the system, that system will keep working and will contribute to you until your life's end. But I think that contract, that morality of the contract is gone, because the local governments are not working. The state governments are no more producing. Everybody is looking onto Abuja. I get grieved when some governors and some states will say we cannot pay pension because Buhari has not sent money to us. President Buhari has not sent money to us. The federal government has not sent money to us. My submission is that the money that comes from the federal government to the states should be for development, should be for capital projects. It is what the states and the local government generate as internal revenue that should use in paying pensions and those things. We should go back to it. Then somebody talked about quarreling with President Obasanjo, as he then was the emeritus president of Nigeria, that he introduced the contributory pension scheme. I want to say that I was in the National Assembly, I was in the House of Representatives at that time, and we saw the pain that all workers went through. And we saw that unless workers have savings for themselves by themselves through a scheme, that there will be crisis in the pension system. And we now said, okay, let the government not pay all the pension, because government was not making enough money and it was not saving enough money. Let there be an idea of you saving a particular part of your own salaries, which we call contributory, your own savings. After all, most of the workers get into these contributions they call Ususu. In my place, in Akwa Ibom, we call it Etebe. I don't Etebe. And now, we said let there be that contributory pension. And the Obasanjo scheme, which we worked with, was the best, because we saw problem that there was no money to pay. The solution to this situation now is, I want to urge persons who are earning pensions in one or two places and who are earning pensions that are no more sustainable by the economic realities of the moment to think of voluntarily making as a contribution, as a sacrifice, can be in the interim, because things were not like this when those laws were made. And I want to urge the Houses of Assembly that they do not wait. In law, you do not wait for the executive to initiate any law. Any law that is no more against public, that is against public policy now, is you have a right to introduce a bill to amend it. You call the public for a hearing. You call even the persons involved, or you call the class of persons involved and invite them. Now, I want to say that for senators, they don't receive pension. Ministers don't receive pension. The representatives don't receive pension. Members of State House of Assembly do not receive pension. Councillors do not receive pension. Political appointees do not receive pension. It is those who work in the civil service, the only persons of political class who do receive pension or some maintenance after are judges, permanent secretaries, because they receive, I mean, it's there in the Act. I want everybody to go and see what the Act is about. And I want to say that there is something about public service. A lot of people think that it's an opportunity to go and make money. No. Public service should be a situation where the society has invested in you. It has invested knowledge in you. It's invested perhaps opportunities in you. Invested so much experience in you. You now give back. Because if it is, if you are really willing to serve, the service you render cannot be really paid for. That is why at the national level, why are you called honorable? Why are you called distinguished? Why are people in the House of Lords called lords? Why are the senators called distinguished? At that level, you have passed what we called, in my level, you've passed the third idianso. That is, what will children eat? You have gotten to a stage that you have one or two investments, you have one or two ideas, you have one or you are satisfied. You get to what the Bible calls contentment, which is the richest of wealth. Contentment, yes. Contentment is the richest wealth. Yeah. Now you get to that stage, you give up. So pension is not what everybody should work for.
All right. We have Sunday calling in from Kogi. All right. We lost that call from Kogi. But then, well, Honorable, you see, the thing is, I like many people have said, it's not the fact that people collect the pensions as their worry. It's that when they look at it, that only a small group of individuals, take a state that churns out maybe 2 governors, 2 deputy governors in the space of 8 years. And to maintain those 4 people, by the time the calculation is done, it would be much more than sustaining 20 people in the civil service. And interestingly, the same chief executives, while in office, who decided that they were unable to pay their workforce, are the same ones who turn around and see nothing wrong in benefiting huge sums.
Yeah, I think the point has been made, and it bears repeating that we need to revisit the legislations in this regard. I endorse that in its entirety, because like we have all accepted, in this country, we think want to urgently want a perfect situation. At any point in time that laws are made, you cannot contemplate all the circumstances that would arise thereafter. Yeah. It is the events that throws up itself as you progress in the implementation of that law that determines whether the makers were indeed in their right senses or they woke up on the wrong side of the bed. So we must understand that the debate must continue. Because when we compare ourselves to very advanced democracies, in matters of this nature, we tend to miss the point that these people have practiced their constitution, they have practiced their laws over time, and their laws have been subject to a lot of review. And that is why you can talk about several amendments. So I think that with respect to this matter generally, we need to understand that in the practice of our democracy, we are still quite young, and our legislations are also quite young and amenable to changes. But I also believe that we are getting the debate very wrong. The debate about this issue should not be centered on those we regard as political class. If you, the political class is an amorphous group. Those who describe the political class of having faith, for instance, are members of that class. Because we are all witnesses to the fact that even civil servants who were given responsibility to manage the contributions of their colleagues within the service in a pension fund have made those monies. They are not members of the political class. So it is not whether a small group of politicians or public office holders earn humongous allowances and pensions that distorts the entire process or that affect badly the administration of pension. But the actions and activities of even civil servants themselves who are charged with responsibility of managing pension fund. I mean, we have the police pension fund, we have the Mainakis, we have the Abubakar Atiku Kigo, and so many, and of recent, the Pitad incidents where those who were expected to, to manage the pension fund for those, transitional arrangement for the customs, prisons, and so on and so forth. We are aware of what happened at the end of the day, and they are undergoing trial. So we shouldn't get the debate wrong. We must put the blame where it belongs. Then there is something I also call the need to consolidate pension. And I believe that a public debate in this direction must also focus on coming out with a legislation that will consolidate funds. In other words, if you were a governor and you are now a minister, or you were a general in the army and you are now a minister, became a governor, you are now a minister, then the law, the pension law must state that these funds must be consolidated in such a way that the person who is to earn it must choose one out of the three.
Yes.
If that happens, then the idea of having to draw multiple pensions from different sources will no longer arise. And I think that is a quicker way to address this issue.
All right, let's go on to Joseph, who's calling in from Imo. Hello, Joseph. Joseph? Joseph, are you still with us? Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah, my contribution here is over the legislature and the public servant. You know, when you take good look into things in this country right now, some people, there is some public servants, like House of Representatives, senators, well, they are there to represent their communities and other places, but they don't take it as anything. Some people there, like House of Representatives, who is supposed to be visiting their areas to know the problem of their people, I assume in their communities. But when they reach there, they don't care about those people that vote them in. All they know is their pockets, which is not the right thing for the public servant to be doing, like most especially that representatives, House of Representatives. So.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Joseph. Okay, we're waiting for you to link this up with the topic tonight, but it's all right. That was a view. But still moving on this subject. Again, we said, how can anyone do anything about it? Senator Itainang said, well, the Assembly does not have to wait for the Chief Executive of the state to start something. But I'm also thinking, he also had agreed in his initial comments that many of these state legislatures, they are nothing but puppets on the string of the chief executive.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
I wouldn't
say that. I wouldn't say that about the legislature.
No. Would the people who are so controlled by the executives now have the where would they now draw the strength from suddenly to go against the wishes of the chief executives?
That was why if you notice the summary of what we've been saying, and the 2 times I've made comments on this, I've kept saying that the solution here must be holistic. The reason is because this discussion has thrown up several issues. It has thrown up, like Honorable said, the issue of the intrinsic corruption in the system, which must be dealt with. So that you find out that the problem we're having, where a situation where even the civil servant who's put in 35 years cannot get that amount that the law provides for him as pension and gratuity. Because some persons entrusted with these funds can have the courage, the effrontery, to steal and elope with this money. And there have been instances that he mentioned. The Mena case is a notorious one, and several other such cases in this country. That must be dealt with, and the agencies responsible to prevent this must up their game. But at the same time, you must come back to the issue of separation of powers, which I raised. The constitutional safeguards must be enforced, and anything that tends to erode or minimize the powers of any of the distinct arms of government, be the executive, legislature, or judicial, must be avoided at all costs. And to that extent, the ongoing constitutional review must address this puppet nature of the houses of assemblies of the states that has rendered them rubber stamps of the executives in the state, because it is making nonsense of the constitutional democracy we have, particularly at the state level, and it's having a very detrimental bandwagon effect on the local government, because it is this same House of Assembly that make those spurious legislations that take away all the entitlements and powers of the local government as provided for in the Constitution. That has now rendered the local government ineffective, so that pensions that should be paid by local government, such as primary school teachers, are not paid and don't even exist at all.
Because the money doesn't go to them.
Because the money doesn't go to them at all. They create some kind of spurious, what they call JAC, Joint Accounts Allocation Committee, where they purportedly lump the local government and state government funds, and from there siphon that which one of the speakers here called hijack or abduction of the funds. Ambush of the funds. So that can only stop when the constitutional amendment create for a truly independent House of Assembly. This is very important because we are all seeking for development. And if we want to develop like other countries, we have seen that the bedrock of the development is always at the local government levels. In the United States, in the UK, it is the councils, it is the counties that actually do the roads and get you the infrastructure logistics to live. And that's why it's easier to live in your county and do whatever you want to do, because situations are the same. That can only happen in Nigeria when the local governments are functional, and that cannot happen except the state assemblies are made independent.
All right, let's go back to the phone quickly, and we have Bala. Oh, that, and that, well, that call too has gone.
Can I just
yes.
Sorry. About the constitutional amendment, I just want to quickly respond to the effect that 3 times now, I'm aware the National Assembly had made taken very bold steps to give independence to the state legislatures. The first one was rejected by a good number of times. The second one was accepted, that was the 7th Assembly. And I'm sure in the ongoing one, is in the offing. What has remained a problem, which state legislatures themselves have not accepted, is that local government should be autonomous.
Very critical.
Because if you want development, you must allow that tier of government that is closer to people to have some independence. So now the situation we are likely to find ourselves very soon is that state legislatures may accept their own independence and then use their own independence to now oppress the local government. That's the situation we are going to get into. Yes. And that is why every hands must be on deck
during this period
to ensure that the next constitutional amendment that is likely to grant autonomy to local governments sees the light of the day.
Okay.
Thank you.
Back to the phones. We have Amina calling in from Kaduna. Hello, Amina.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, talking about pension, please. Yeah, we want to talk about the military pension. Our husbands will go for war, go to Maiduguri, but no Adamawa to fight. And their pension is just a 2 pence. If you look at their pension is just 3.8 million, which is not really good for them. So something should be done about it.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Amina. Well, it's, well, it's yes. Well, that's it's what's blowing around, and you know, in a situation where you have people complaining about pensions, and it's mind-boggling when you hear, okay, some others.
It's not enough. Okay.
All right. Yes. How do we address the situation?
Well, I think I would simply hinge on to where Senator Italian, the suggestion that he made, which is the need to revisit these laws. There is, I don't think we should paper over it in the way in terms it comes out as if it will depend on the goodness of the individual who is receiving it.
Yeah.
If he feels very nice about it, then he should. I think that will not solve the problem. We need to deal with it from a more constitutional way of.
But it's got to be done by the House of Assembly of that state.
No, that's what I'm saying. And this engagement is coming to be able to put that on the front burner.
Yes.
And say, hey, look, when people say law, Nazism was law. It was not that Hitler. It was a parliament that gave him the power that he used to run. Okay. When people were killing twins, it was not illegal, it was legal.
Yeah.
So we can't continue to make a fetish of the law. If the law is not serving public good, we need to bring the pressure that is necessary to bear on both, to see the need at this point in time, to say, look, you can't sit in Kebbi and say when your governor finishes, he should have 3 houses in Abuja. I don't understand. There is nowhere. I don't understand it. That he should have 2 vehicles, brand new vehicles, which can be replaced and all of those kind of things.
Sometimes they specify bulletproof.
Bulletproof. It's not sustainable.
And bulletproof will be bought in dollars at today's rate.
I think it's not just NTA now. The media, civil society must collectively build a network
on this matter,
or around the constitutional amendment process, to be able to form a bulwark against this kind of threats that we are receiving. But more importantly, people cannot be saying, there is nowhere in the world where pension is there's a percentage to it everywhere. So if you are in the military, you earn an amount. Now that they are doing contributory pension, what is dangerous for our country is that we do not have the institutional mechanism to even safeguard what has been contributed.
That's
and there is no challenge, there is no penalty, there is no sanction. So until we need to put up that institutional mechanism that protects this my contribution, so that and then we can't continue to use benefit as as an escape that increase the benefit, then people will stop stealing. It's not true. Research has shown that it is even people who have more benefits that steal more. That's what research has shown. So it's so, because the argument always is that if you increase benefits, people will not steal. The truth is that civil servants that you have today, majority of the shops in Garki Market are owned by civil servants. The one in Wuse Market are owned by civil servants. Majority of the houses that you have in Abuja are owned by civil servants, and many of them are not even at directorate level. So they are already taking care of themselves, but that's not the point. So we need to get to a point where we have a constitutional, institutional mechanism that protects money that has been received, and then ensure that there is evenness in the way these resources are distributed.
All right, I'll come back to you shortly, but let's try and get this call from Arinze. He's calling in from Anambra.
Hello, good evening. Yeah, this is Arinze Franklin.
Yes,
calling from Anambra State. My own case is very pathetic, and different from let's say the discussion, because the media salary I am receiving has been deducting. They have been deducting my salary without remitting the deductions into my pension account. And I noticed this since January last year. Meeting to the office severally, nothing has been done. Imagine since 2014, my salary has been, part of the salary has been deducted without really tax into the pension account. So this is a very big problem, a challenge. I don't know how to go about it. I've written to the office where I work, National Education Agency, severally. There's no response up to now. And this is somebody's pension, we are talking about. The retirement benefit.
Okay.
So I am just calling to know if there is any help how to go about it, because this is really, disturbing me.
Well, Arinze, we dealt with this matter before today, where we had representatives of PTAD, for instance, and if you had been watching this program, you would have heard people who called in with similar complaints. But it's not all lost. You can also get to see, of course, we always advertise this, you can get to see all our programs, our stories on NTA, and much more when you go to our website. And you can find out past editions of this program that address the issue of pensions. And for those who have complaints such as yours, you get to get the details there of what you should do. So just get onto our website, and you'd be able to get answers to some of these questions you've raised. For tonight, we're still looking at how we can address the issue of the huge disparity between what people who have served as governors, deputy governors, what the state assemblies have doled out to be pension benefits for them, including, of course, medical care for life for them and their immediate families, as well as the replacement of, like we all heard here, bulletproof vehicles. But again, I think it was one of the discussants here who alluded to the fact that this starts not just at the level of people getting into office, but the process of recruiting leadership itself. You asked, for instance, who are the people we are electing into public office and what are we paying them for? Why do we hear that people leave office, they've been elected, and then they are charged, cases are still going on, and should there not be something in these provisions to say, look, if you are indicted of running aground or doing X, Y, Z, you lose part of these pensions that have been recommended for you. How about that?
Well, I always thought that if you open a business for somebody and the person, for lack of words to use now, cripples that business, if you need to first sanction the person. We don't sanction anything. We throw bailouts, 600 and something billion naira to bail out people. And even as we speak, they are unable to. Who is sanctioned? Nobody, no sanction. The guy is going to finish his tenure, and it will, as we speak now, no political exposed person of any serious significance, former governor, whose case has been concluded. When the former EFCC boss was there, he said he was investigating 31 governors. What happened to those investigations? All of that is gone into the. So the point is that why are we bailing out people? Who is sanctioning them? Are we waiting for them to finish their tenure and give an account? When you come to the National Assembly, for instance, where they finish, you are serving us. We don't know how many times you attend sittings. It's not public knowledge. Okay? If you ask, they say, we were in committee meeting, because the nature of they tell us you don't even understand the parliament. That's why you as if it's one. We want to be able to know. You are serving us. Senator is my representative. How many times did he come for sitting? I want to know. On issues, where did he vote? Where does he stand on those issues? That is what we are calling openness. So that citizens, inclusiveness, is so that citizens can know the service that you are rendering to them. How effectively you are rendering that service. There's opaqueness everywhere. Okay? That opaqueness is what sustains corruption. If you're able to let me know that he sat for, out of this number of sitting days, this is the number of days he sat. Okay? he was in committee sitting, the attendance for committee meeting, it should be that, so that we know all of these things, and then we can say thank you. We can reward you for good service. But we lump all of these things together, and you know, everybody. So check at the end of every republic or every tenure, as it were, the humongous amount of money that goes to severance, from councillor to the Senate. What is the amount of resources that the country spends in severance? Put it together collectively and see whether that it is mind-boggling. Okay? Now check the number of, what is the number of these people compared to the burgeoning youth unemployment in your country. A great number of your citizens can't work. Your industries are collapsing. What is the percentage of these people that we are paying? What work have they done for us? Is our country improved? Has electricity improved? Has the schools improved? Has hospitals been better in this whole 12 years? When you put comparison and then put what they have earned, whether in severance or in take home, or in the underhand issues also that come to them, you then be able to compare seriously whether they deserve some of this. And that is what is aching Nigerians. Nigerians are people who are very grateful for good service. And some of the honorables here know that their people are excited about their service because they are transparent, they are open. So it is not a collective thing. If you serve your people well, they know. But as a country, as a collective, the people of Nigeria are not excited about the quality of service that they have received from leadership. And that is why this problem is continuing the way it's doing.
Yeah. Right. And like I said, yes, this issue is throwing up a whole lot of things. And we must face them, even though we are dealing with the narrow issue of pension. But this issue is coming as a result of the background of corruption. The issue of how you recruit our leaders. Because these House of Assembly members were saying that are passing these obnoxious legislations and according humongous pensions to public officers like ex-governors who just held, fought for a brief tenure.
It doesn't happen at the national level.
I agree.
It does not happen at the national level.
These people couldn't have done that if they were actually fit and proper ab initio. Am I communicating? So we must deal with that. A situation where people are elected because they could dole out money. People are elected because of one, like he mentioned, one incongruity or the other in the party formation or in the process. That is something that must also be dealt with. Nigerians must come to recognize that we actually have the kind of leaders we deserve. And when it comes to constitutional amendment, the National Assembly should please take note of these issues that have been raised tonight. And when it also comes to next election, the electorate should also become a bit discerning, realizing that the complaints we have now about pensions, payment, non-payment, people falling and dying, collapsing at the queues where they are waiting for pension, could have been obviated if the right leadership were put in place via the electoral process.
I think we just have to return to one issue, the issue of the pension. And there is one serious issue that has arisen and has been bothering my mind before we get to another big round of failures. I think the government, the legislature, the executive should do a lot of intelligence work at the pension fund administrators and the instrument in which the pension funds are invested, so that we do not have to raise, I think sometimes ago on the floor of the Senate, while opposing the bill that sought to create sinking fund for AMCON. I said that Nigeria should avoid a situation where we will have to create an AMCON to manage another AMCON to manage AMCON. So that we do not look at a situation where we are struggling to talk about pension not being adequate, pension being unfairly paid to certain persons, and then we come to say, even those ones that were contributed by persons to be served, where are there? Because we, in making that law, we made provision for pension fund administrators, that you served your funds with pension fund administrators, and there were qualifications for being appointed as pension fund administrator. The legislature, the executive, I'm sorry as an officer of government to say this, we should go and take care so that where are the funds admitted, kept, in which bank. And this is part of why we should make sure that the banks don't have any shaking. Because if it shakes, it is not the funds of the ordinary investors, depositors, that will go. It may also affect the pension fund because these things are kept in certain accounts. I agree that in making the law, we looked at the Trust Administration Act and the law that says you cannot invest in this, you cannot invest in this, you cannot invest in this. Most of these funds are not in the banks, they're in different investments. We can also see, look, can we ask the government to officially, formally apply to the pension fund to take loan from that pension fund and invest in infrastructure where you can even see after retirement that if it were in a road, the road can be towed and it can pay back. I think we have to go and look at that because some days ago, I mean some years ago, some of these funds had problems. I mean some of the administrators had internal management problems. So we should also make sure that any internal management problem is, I know that the system is very protective. That's what I want us to look at. And finally, on the law of the need to review the laws. In law, we say that you review or repeal or amend any law if it is unconscionable or repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience. So we should look at this. If some of these laws are now, it may have been right then, but now unconscionable, repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience.
All right. Yeah. If I may just do this quick intervention at this stage, I think I agree to the large extent all the suggestions have been made, and I wish to make additional suggestions. There is a lack of a culture of political consciousness among the people themselves, and this has to do with leadership recruitment, which he spoke about, because it is an aspect of corruption that we tend to ignore and then look the other side of those who are in government. Otherwise, how do you explain a voter who chooses money rather than make a conscionable decision as to who represents him? Because it is the character and the nature of the leader you choose that determines the service you get at the end of the day. So you cannot give what you don't have. And if you choose a leader on the basis of the fact that he gives you more money to vote on election day,
right there.
So continue to expect that that leader will go on and on, get as much money to be able to pay you several times in order to get elected several times. That is one. And that also pertains to the issue of electoral credibility. I mean, electoral management bodies must ensure that for all this to work, leadership must be legitimate and must not have question mark at any point in time. Senator Itaina spoke very well about the issue of synergy among all the organs of government in order to ensure that they do the right thing in looking at those who are charged with responsibility of managing pension funds at the moment. But far more important is institutional integrity. When Obama said Africa do not need strong men, we need strong institutions. What he did not realize is that our system have become, corruption has become so pervasive. Doing the wrong things have become so pervasive in our system that you need strong men to be able to lead the way for institutions to be built. And I think that is why I give kudos to this administration, because we can all agree that the man at the top today has a large dosage of integrity. At least a majority of Nigerians accept that. In spite of the economic quagmires that we have all found ourselves, which is the result of a lot of economic mismanagement and so on and so forth, and of course not doing the right things, we agree that to be able to build institutions so that they can work by themselves, we need a leadership whose body language, whose style of administration detests the wrong things being done the wrong things being done at all. And I think it is only in this way that some of these issues we are raising can be addressed.
All right. Yeah, but well, I like the aspect you talked about people not being politically aware, because again, there are those who argue, say, well, sometimes you find that it is the citizens themselves who drive the leaders to get involved in things like this because of inordinate demands they make of their leaders.
And it takes them nowhere.
So, if a governor has been providing handouts, giving out freebies while in office, it is expected that out of office he would still give out those freebies. And so he would need to have a sustainable... So, in order to do those handouts. How do you react to that?
Yeah, that was why I started talking about my own experience as someone who has knowledge about this politics, that there is need for us to deal with all the issues. And I'm happy that from the contributions from the table here, that there seems to be that unanimism among all of us, that all the issues, and I hear Senator Enan picking out some, I hear the Honorable picking out some, I hear my comrades were picking out some, so that Nigerians now see that we need to solve this problem holistically, because it's a very serious issue. If you don't deal with the corruption aspect, you're never going to get it solved. If you don't deal with the proper legislation aspect, you're never going to get it solved. And if you don't deal with the issue of quality of leadership, you're never going to get it solved. And if you don't deal with the issue of mode of recruitment, the electoral process, you're never going to get it solved. At the end of the day, as long as the sum total is that somebody who is put in 35 years in service, or even just 8 years, because we must even also juxtapose and marry that with the philosophy. I'm aware of a situation where a former governor, after serving for a brief period, I don't want to mention name, ended up taking the risk of having to come to Abuja by night bus and all of that. You don't also want that for these persons who have served at those levels. So this whole thing needs to have a strategic balance, whereby there is adequate provision for these former public office holders.
Just what is reasonable.
What is reasonable, not as humongous as to cripple the economy of their states, such that even the civil servants that put in their best to run the state, their salaries are owed for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months, as is the present case now. And then retirees, like you saw the professor who was talking in your reportage. I mean, for him to be, said he started teaching in 1962, and at the age of 78, he is having to complain about his pension. That is very ungodly.
He said his salary was 4,600,
and he's having to, and he's having to beg for it. It's very unfair. We must be a country that shows respect to our senior citizens, to our elders, and both from the religious Christian faith and the Islamic faith, which we all profess in this country, both of them preach respect for elders and people who are senior citizens. And these people cannot all finish serving, and we have a country or a state of affairs or a state of legislation or laws or processes that allow a situation where they now have to beg for their pension. That is very unconscionable. And so all the suggestions we've made here to the National Assembly in terms of constitutional review, all that we've said here tonight in terms of the holistic war against corruption, so that even the contributory pension right now in place, the funds do not disappear one day, and we have people dying of heart attack and all of that. The process must be soon put in place that it will never happen.
Please just went to the constitution review, because we must be careful on review of the constitution to affect pensions. Because when we looked at the constitution, when we did the review of the constitution at the House of Representatives, and even when we did in the Senate, we said, look, you cannot transfer pension liabilities or responsibilities to an arm of government, to a tier of government that was not the employer. Because you can say, look, let us transfer pension, because federal government is doing its own very well. The states are not. We cannot transfer.
No, that's not my suggestion.
What I'm saying is that this is not matter. These are only matters we can be dealt with by way of this cannot be dealt with by constitutional amendment. economy dealt with by the law of the respective tiers of government.
No, let me correct that. The point where I said about constitutional amendment is because it has become apparent that the state assemblies
derive the powers.
Derive the powers from the governors. They have become stooges. They derive from the constitution, and not only that, as things are presently, they don't have independence.
No, let me tell you that.
And until
when we say Zambia must be free, Zambia should have been prepared. Zambians were prepared for freedom. You cannot say Zambia must be free, and Zambia say, no, I'm not.
Well, I think two things will be coming out, and it will be, one will help to solve the problem. This issue of leadership recruitment process. Yeah. Senator Itayang is a lawyer. Should have a practice, or should have something.
Source of living.
So, Honorable Osagi, a lawyer, very, very, not just a lawyer, also, known practice. Barrister Nomudu is known. So, this man who will take night bus after serving as a governor, you want me to be sympathetic to him that the only thing he knows is to be governor? He has no other way to live and make a living. We can't continue like that. The problem we have is that we continue to put people in leadership who have no second address. And it's a big problem for our country.
Have a second address.
It's important. So that's important, because this whole idea is that, okay, people are now making career out of being politician. I'm a politician. What do you do? I'm a politician. Okay? So we owe you, so it is us that owe you permanently until you die. That's not going to happen in a country that want to make progress. The second other thing that we need to do is that we are not dealing with instruments, mortgage instruments. Why? What kind of country do we run where we say you have low-income houses that are selling for 7 million? You call it low income.
And it's 7 million.
And it's 7 million. And you tell a civil servant to pay a percentage. You are crippling the ability of people to own their own homes.
Thereby promoting corruption.
Thereby promoting corruption. So we must engage with a stakeholder discussion around mortgage instruments, around pension. This conversation shouldn't end the
investment in those instruments.
We should be able to have a wider conversation.
Yes,
you understand. Where the pension administrators will come, government people will come, civil society people will come. We have a holistic conversation, practitioners
on investment.
On investments, we discuss this matter, and then if that is what we take away from, our conversation tonight, that would be fine. Then what kind of loan systems do you have in the banks? Okay, you have what you call CBN, medium SMEs and all of that. 9% loan. To whom does this money go to? What kind of thing? What are we driving?
Who can access
it? Is it available?
It's not available.
Who can access it? Is it the opaqueness of the system that we run does not give a guarantee for the kind of expectations that we're expecting from our citizens?
Yeah.
And finally also, let's not also forget the ongoing agitation. Because even though we're talking about pension, we're looking at the root causes and the root solutions. If all of this cannot happen immediately, can we look back when we had relatively fiscal federalism, were the regions owing pensions? The answer is no.
Structure now.
So the structure of the country also at that time.
But let me tell you something. Let me share this joke. Let me share this joke. We were at the national conference, and regionalism was a huge conversation. Right. And somebody from Edo said, where will be the capital of
Southwest?
Edo. So will it be Benin or Port Harcourt? You mean I should be going back south? You mean I should be going back to
Port Harcourt?
And then the man in Lagos said, you want me to carry the burden of Osun State
to go Ibadan?
Or I can't do. So let's move. Let's move. This conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
All right. Well, it's been interesting talking to you, and I always say this: that no one program effectively takes on all the issues. We will have to leave it here at this point. Some other day we'll revisit the issues. But Mark now would like to thank our guests who have come in here, Senator Itayang, Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Nigerians, for listening to us.
Honorable Samson Osagi, it's
Cyril, it's nice being with you once again.
Nice being with you again.
Pleasure.
Enjoy that. And for Barrister Isaac Anumudu, thank you for being around here.
Thanks, Cyril.
Okay.
And thanks, Nigerians, for listening.
Okay, and for Comrade Ezenwa Wagu, it's always a delight to have you here.
Thank you.
Perhaps Barrister Isaac Anumudu would be the first timer here. On this program, I believe so. He's the first timer.
He's coming out.
Okay. All others have had
a bite.
Extended to you. Thank you very much once again for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you also to you for being part of this program. Next week we'll reach you again on NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.